Too much? Look, no matter what I say and do, I'm gonna let that inner fan out of me from time to time. You all know this, especially with how I appear in videos and from my background on my shelf. I think I'm a fan. Maybe just a tad bit. Okay, I wouldn't say I'm a massive, huge fan. Who am I kidding? I have been a massive fan all my life, pretty much. But hey, who hasn't? Let me be the nerd that I am, but also a respectful one at best.
Let's save the rest for after dinner.
The Mandalorian and Grogu is directed by Jon Favreau and written by Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, and Noah Kloor. The film stars Pedro Pascal, Jeremy Allen White, and Sigourney Weaver. According to IMDb's plot synopsis, the evil empire has fallen, but Imperial warlords remain scattered throughout the galaxy. As the fleeing New Republic works to protect everything the rebellion fought for, they enlist the help of legendary Mandalorian bounty hunter Din Djarin and his young apprentice Grogu. Like I said at the beginning of this, if you haven't noticed by now, yeah, I love Star Wars. It has and always will be my favorite franchise. It's what made me want to be in films and just storytelling. Star Wars just brings something out of me in a way that I can't explain. But it's the same old story I think most people my age can tell you, which is one of our parents, father, mother, maybe even uncle, aunt, whoever it was, brother and sister even. Someone in your life has sat you down and made you watch the Star Wars movies. In this case, it was my dad, okay? He made me watch the original three films from his childhood, and yeah, they have left a huge imprint on my life, and I owe a huge debt to what this franchise means so much and how it has really shaped and perceived my way of what filmmaking but also storytelling can be for audiences to really be captivated by. I have always been an original trilogy fan, okay, through and through, no matter what. The original trilogy from 77 to 83, they have left a huge imprint on me, and to this day, I don't think any sort of trilogy will ever top it, okay? I'm sorry. I guess you could say that that's biasy talking, but for me personally, there's just something about that original trilogy that just brings that joy and happiness out of me. And of course, after the original trilogy's run, there is of course the prequel era, which is what a lot of millennials or Gen Zers had grew up watching. And I've come around to them mainly because of really Clone Wars, okay? If you ask me, I'm not a huge fan of them. I have my issues with them as a whole, as well as what Lucas did with them, but I have kind of have a bit of a soft spot for what this trilogy was, mainly because really of what has now come out of this said trilogy in the form of Star Wars: The Clone Wars. What Dave Filoni did and was able to really help make that prequel trilogy at least tolerable is impressive to me, and is easily one of the reasons why I don't absolutely downright hate the prequel films. Since Disney bought Lucasfilm back in 2012 and the reception of what the sequel trilogy in the coming years from 2015 all the way up to 2019, and then of course you add in both Rogue One from 2016 and Solo: A Star Wars Story from 2018, it has been very controversial, mainly from the sequel movies. Like Rogue One, to a lot of fans, it is easily one of their favorite Star Wars movies, at the very least within the top 10, top 5. A lot of fans still have a huge soft spot for that movie. Solo, it gets a little bit underappreciated, and that is what it is, but I'm glad that there are some fans out there that really like it. As for the sequel movies, well, one movie people actually still thinks is the best one, even though I personally think there is another movie in this trilogy that I think is better, but of course, because nobody liked it, it has now led to, a bit of a disappointment. During that time, Disney Plus was launched, and then what started Star Wars' transition into television was, of course, The Mandalorian. The first two seasons primarily were the things that helped captivate audiences to kind of going back and really loving Star Wars and actually giving newcomers to actually watch something without having to watch any of the other previous movies. But of course, after the Book of Boba Fett, things kind of took a bit of an up and down turn for this franchise. And then, of course, with Mandalorian Season 3, I found it to be kind of disappointing and very underwhelming for what they could have done, mainly from Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. I was just surprised that they were making a theatrical film. Really, I didn't think that they were going to go down this route if they were going to make a movie. I thought it was going to be like a Disney Plus movie. But, they are very confident in wanting to give this a shot, and it's probably the safer option, I guess. But seriously, I just never thought to myself, like, oh yeah, The Mandalorian definitely deserves to be in theaters. It just never crossed my mind. In the end, it was a decent time, okay? Don't get me wrong, there are things I like about this movie, but I do think, however, is lacking in certain aspects. And that to me is, I think, the biggest problem with what this movie kind of faces. It feels more like a promotion for the show more than actually being a standalone Star Wars movie that I think can be great to get everyone together to watch this and appreciate, at least in my eyes. Feeling just really what it is. Before discussing my problems with this film, here are now my positives. The performances are fun. Pedro Pascal is still tough but determined as the titular character, and also Jeremy Allen White is a nice addition to this universe. Again, Pedro Pascal, he is a big name. He is going out there, and he has been playing this character for a long time, ever since season 1. It really shows how much he really has a fondness for this franchise, and again, I can tell that the guy really enjoys being part of the Star Wars universe. He really does bring the toughness as well as the heart aspect that he has alongside Grogu, the apprentice that has been taking the world by storm, that was dubbed Baby Yoda for a long time, but then changed once his name was revealed. And their dynamic in the movie, it's great. I think Pedro Pascal really plays off of this puppet very well, and it's surprising to me how much of the emotional depth comes out of him when that puppet of Grogu is always with him. That's just what makes their dynamic so fascinating, so fun to watch at the very least, even if I still have my own issues with where they've taken this story. But I can't deny it really does show that Pedro Pascal is really somebody who really wants to get you to invest in what this movie is, and he is still bringing in the sort of cool vibes that you always expect from a Mandalorian bounty hunter. And here he just continues on with what the series had been, and he's still kicking ass while he's doing it. Jeremy Allen White, I was kind of interested in where this was going because I didn't know what to make, and the fact that they were having him play a character like Ra the Hutt from Clone Wars, like the Clone Wars movie, I should say. That was interesting. I was not expecting Ra to come back because a lot of people didn't want to do anything with him. And so you think to yourself, okay, well, where can this go exactly? And to my surprise, I was actually really liking Rada. I thought Jeremy Allen White actually did pretty well of playing a character who wants to get away from his father's shadow, his legacy of being a crime boss, and being somebody that he wants to be, his own person. And I felt that was pretty cool. And I think Jeremy Allen White really seemed like he was having a fun time in the recording booth, really playing this character and just giving sense of a character that is trying to change his family's image by just being who he is rather than giving into the notion of what his family's legacy has always been. And I thought that was pretty awesome. As much as I think it is cool to see her in movies such as Star Wars, and while I don't think she is bad in this movie, I think Sigourney Weaver is fine. I mean, don't expect much out of her other than just the role that she plays here, and that's all you're gonna get. I think it's more so the fact that they just wanted to get her because of how iconic she is as a science fiction actor. And sure, I mean, they can have her in this movie doing what they want her to do, being this old rebel hero who is now giving Mando orders in terms of going after Imperial remnant targets. The direction is admirable. Director Jon Favreau is able to navigate the galaxy with ease and ramp up action sequences, continuing on with what the show was. Jon Favreau was the man that created this character, and it really shows you how much the guy just really has a fondness for Star Wars and just also really pulling from obscure things from the franchise's history, whether it be creatures that were in one segment of the movies to even the toy lines. The guy really loves what this series has been known for and what it means to him. And I can tell the passion in the way in which he helms this project. I feel like this guy has that love affinity for this galaxy far, far away. Mainly the Western aspect. I think he nails this down pretty well in the way in which Mando just walks through and how he is able to kind of navigate the ways in which he is able to dispatch enemies and also try to get involved in the story as much as possible. That is what works in the way in which Jon Favreau handles it. He just dives right in without having to really feel like you need to 100% feel like you're lost and completely confused in the sense of feeling like you're not going to understand it immediately. I think you'll get it as the movie goes along, but I do think the guy just really loves what this series brings out of people, and I can appreciate him for that. The music is exciting. Composer Ludwig Garrison brings a lively and thrilling score like he has with the first two seasons of the show, offering wonder in the galaxy. Ludwig Göransson, he is a composer that is continuously getting so many hits under his belt and so many Oscar wins for his said work. And the guy continues that. He really shows how captivating he is when he is doing a score and how he is able to implement different types of music styles, whether it be orchestral or really just being more contemporary with guitar riffs and drum beats. That's pretty cool to see a guy like this incorporate new stuff into Star Wars and still give the sense that it feels like it, but it doesn't feel like rehashed stuff from like the previous trilogies. It feels like it is completely fresh, completely new, just like how the shows were, and really showcasing what makes the Mandalorian stand out so much more is in the way in which the music really plays off in the film. Action is solid. Seeing the Mando fight in way led to some enjoyable aspects to what this movie was. A highlight that I will say being in a Coliseum was pretty much a good time. And this involves Mando and Rada. And I won't say much because I don't want to spoil anything. All I'll just say it's pretty badass and pretty cool to see these two involved in this arena battle. And it was pretty awesome to see where it all led to. But most of the action I think is pretty well handled. It's pretty much continuing with what the shows were and how the action is framed and how it is all choreographed and how it is all showcased. Everything in this does feel like a lifted translation from what the shows were onto the big screen. And you feel the effort, you feel the passion behind every sort of action sequence that is put into here. And it's cool to just see how much Star Wars has kind of changed and evolved in the ways in which action is showcased. And here it feels completely different than even what the previous other movies have done. The production is stellar. As always, seeing the props, sets, and costumes are all well made, truly continuing the tradition that Star Wars is known for, which is giving you this galaxy far, far away experience that no other science fiction movies, even today, can give you that sense of wonder and awe in the way in which props, costumes, and sets, and how they are able to just morph it all together and blend it so seamless. It's really truly magnificent to see so many hardworking people really putting in the time and effort into giving audiences but even fans something that they have always enjoyed about the series, and that is just how much it truly feels unique and so interesting and very exciting to watch. The effects are amazing. Getting to see the practicality and visuals on display through the Creature Shop and even ILM is really incredible. Props to them for always delivering. The Creature Shop, they are geniuses in how they are able to bring all the animatronics and puppeteer work to life. It's quite remarkable. And it's awesome to see how much Star Wars really wants to prioritize practicality in terms of some of the creatures, whether it be Grogu or the Inzelans that you see, the creatures that were first introduced to the character of Babu Frick in The Rise of Skywalker, to even some of the stop motion animation stuff that happened in this movie. It's insane to me, the level of detailing that goes into it. And then, of course, you have ILM, a prestigious visual effects company that was founded by George Lucas and all, still showcasing how they are able to even blend some of the practicality with the visual effects to make it truly feel lively. And it's incredible, it is enthralling to see so much of that love and dedication to what this franchise is be on full display here. For the good aspects, and trust me, there are, it unfortunately becomes a bit of a mess in major areas, in areas that I feel like really start to show its flaws and problems, in my eyes at least. So here are now my negatives. The story is lackluster. Seeing the titular characters going on this mission for the New Republic felt nothing grand or significant to the wider galaxy. It begs the question by the end on why this is a theatrical Star Wars film. Because honestly, it is really just 3 episodes of The Mandalorian squished in over 2 hours and just put on the big screen. And it does beg the question, why? Like, they couldn't make something that was wholly original for like a theatrical experience, in the sense of like not having to feel like either a continuation of the shows or just feeling like adding something to the wider galaxy of what Star Wars is known for. It just kind of feels like greatest hits that you just kind of know Star Wars to do. And honestly, it does leave much to be desired. And that's the disappointing part. That I just feel like it doesn't seem to be a story that really truly feels its own, nor does it feel like a continuation. It just kind of feels like this weird hybrid where it's a continuation of these movies, but it doesn't do anything to push the narrative of what those shows had already done, in the sense of what's going to happen later down the line for the titular characters and what this will all mean for the wider Star Wars universe, in the sense of what's the next show or movie going to explore with these characters. You just are kind of left wondering, like, why was this even a thing if it was just to be a safer option for them to put a Star Wars movie in theaters after such a long period. The writing is repetitive. Writers Favreau, Filoni, and Kloor writes a script that feels reused from other Star Wars movies slash shows that doesn't leave an impact, redoing the most standard parts of what this franchise is known for. And I honestly just wish that they had really had dialogue that just really feels hard hitting, or at the very least just gives the vibes of at least being an entertaining Western space adventure. And to me, I just kind of feel like lines that you just heard a dozen times in Star Wars just kind of reused in here, and nothing about it feels fresh nor exciting. It just kind of feels like standard at this point, that you're just really left wondering what else can they do in terms of what writing for Star Wars can mean. And honestly, it just kind of really makes you feel surprised and stunned that for as crafty as Favreau and Filoni can be, they can really stumble in areas when it comes to that writing and how the story plays out. And here, unfortunately, you have both cases where both of these ends are starting to really become more apparent. The pacing and runtime is drawn out. Scenes would go by, but it would go on for far too long. With a runtime of 2 hours and 12 minutes, it's really unnecessary. I said that they feel like they took 3 episodes of The Mandalorian and squished them together to make it over 2 hours. And honestly, I don't know why this is, because I feel like this is a plot that should have been at the very least like maybe like an hour 35, maybe hour 40, 45. I really don't see this anywhere going past 2 hours, and the fact that they managed to stretch that shit out to being as long as it is, it's kind of really noticeable. And you just feel like there's no point then on this really feeling as theatrical as it should be, because it's showcasing how it can't work for a theatrical experience when you really start to notice the TV pacing and runtime of it really on display in a bigger screen and a bigger theater. The villains are generic. Having a focus on Jabba's cousins didn't felt memorable or fun, leaving much to really also be desired. I understand these are characters that were introduced in another TV show in the form of Book of Boba Fett, and yeah, they're just there because they're Hutts. Hey, Jabba the Hutt was a villain, so why can't his cousins be? And the problem is that they're just not interesting. They're really not. They just kind of feel like downgraded or wannabe versions of Jabba the Hutt that you just don't find yourself invested with. And they feel like such throwaway villains at this point that you're like, I don't see what the big deal is with you guys and how impactful you are going to be for our titular characters. It somehow does, but I also do think how. Because honestly, these are characters that could have easily been swept under the rug and never to be talked about or mentioned in some areas, but not as actual villains. Like, I'm talking like actual villains that you want to be invested by. These are villains that I wouldn't find myself really partaking in and being really all that interested in what happens. It just kind of feels like they're just there because they needed villains, so this is who they got. Overall, with this being the first Star Wars film in 7 years, The Mandalorian Grogu is a decent but underwhelming film that lacks the huge excitement that brings life to this almost 50-year-old franchise. It might have some enjoyment, but this really doesn't carry the series forward, but just keeps it in the same place. That's the biggest problem, I think, with what this movie really struggles with, is that it doesn't feel like it's carrying forward what Star Wars is known for, in the sense, in a direction where it feels really exciting in the form of capturing what made the trilogy films, or even just something like Rogue One or even Solo, to maybe some extent, to being as exciting or as fascinating and fun, or making you wonder what's going to happen next. It just kind of feels like a one-off, and that's truly what I think at the end of the day. And I don't understand why this was pushed into theaters, but it was. And honestly, for as much as it did look good in a theater, and while there are some aspects that I did enjoy, I can't deny and sit here and lie to people and say like, "Oh yeah, this was amazing," because it really wasn't. But I'm not mad, because at least I have other projects to love, rather than just losing my mind over one that just didn't work for me. I'm gonna give The Mandalorian Grogu a 6 out of 10. This movie is just decent at best. If you just want something that's a enjoyable-ish Star Wars movie, you're gonna get this. But if you're really looking forward to the next big thing with what Star Wars can do with what the franchise is going for, this is just gonna be really the same as the shows are, which is, hey, it's a movie that somehow got 3 episodes to be stretched out to being 2 hours and 12 minutes, and it's playing in theaters. And unless you're seeing it in IMAX and maybe 3D, you're not really 100% going to notice the difference between watching it at home versus watching in the big screen. I think that is what really hurts this movie, is that it just does feel like this was really meant for streaming, or rather for a TV movie quality, rather than actual Star Wars scope and scale feeling. Because honestly, movies and TV shows are really blurring together in terms of how they look and feel. And with Star Wars, it's kind of now recently making it hard to know what the difference is. But hey, I didn't hate it, but I'm not going to sit here and lie to people and say, yeah, I was kind of let down and a little bit underwhelmed with what I got instead. But hey, if you love it, I'm happy for you. So that is it. That is all of May. So I will be back in June, starting with Masters of the Universe 2026. So yes, look forward to that review and other reviews coming soon.